You never really expect your life to unravel on an ordinary Tuesday. The sky was clear, my coffee was lukewarm, and my golden retriever, Scout, was pacing again. At first, I thought he just needed a walk, maybe some extra attention, but there was something in his eyes. Something frantic. Something urgent. And deep down, I knew something was wrong. Looking back, I can still hear myself say it out loud, half as a joke. The dog knew I was in danger, but no one believed me. Not until it was too late. Scout started acting strange exactly 6 days before the first note showed up. It began so subtly I almost missed it, just a glance, really. One of those long, glassy-eyed stares he gave when he was trying to tell me something but didn't have the words. He was perched at the living room window that morning, motionless, his head tilted slightly to the side. His ears were up, alert, and his whole body was stiff like he was frozen mid-thought. "See something, buddy?" I asked, tossing my keys onto the entry table. He didn't respond, not even a tail wag. That was weird. Scout was a golden retriever through and through, loyal, gentle, a total goofball who wagged his tail at squirrels and tried to make friends with butterflies. He was 5 years old, but still carried himself with puppy enthusiasm. Except that week, he was different. At first, I chalked it up to boredom. Maybe he needed more walks. Maybe he missed my ex, who used to take him on 3-mile hikes every Saturday. Maybe he was just having an off week. Dogs could have those too, right? But then came the pacing. Back and forth from the front door to the hallway. From the hallway to the kitchen. Circles around the couch. Tail low, ears flat. At night, he sat facing the door of my bedroom, growling under his breath like he was warning something away. One night, he barked, sharp, loud, and sudden at nothing. I jumped out of bed, heart hammering, only to find him bristling in the hallway, hackles raised, staring down the dark stairs like someone was standing there. I checked the locks, the windows, the backyard. Nothing. Probably a raccoon, I muttered to myself. But the way he kept growling made the air feel colder. I mentioned it to Kara during our weekly FaceTime. "He's just being a dog," she said, chewing on her thumbnail. "They pick up on stuff all the time. Wind, smells, you name it. Don't go full ghost hunter on me." I laughed, but it didn't quite reach my eyes. Then, on the 6th day, I found the note. It was wedged under my windshield wiper when I left work. A folded square of paper, damp at the corners from the misty afternoon drizzle. No envelope. No name. Just 3 words scrawled in large, uneven letters. "He sees you." I stood there for a long time, staring at the note with Scout sitting beside me in the passenger seat, staring just as hard. He let out a low whine. I checked the parking lot. Empty, except for a couple of rusted trucks and a dented sedan I didn't recognize. I told myself it was a prank. A weird one, sure, but probably harmless. A mistake. Maybe meant for someone else. That's what I told myself. But when I looked back at Scout, he was trembling. And for the first time in all the years I'd had him, he wouldn't stop looking over his shoulder. Scout stopped sleeping through the night. Every few hours, I'd wake up to the sound of his nails clicking against the hardwood floor as he paced. Or worse, his growl. Low, guttural, vibrating through the dark. Not a bark, not a whimper. A warning. On the second night after the note, I found him at the back door just before 3 a.m., nose pressed against the glass, tail straight and stiff. The motion sensor light outside had clicked on. I followed his gaze. Nothing. Just the empty yard. I tried to laugh it off, ruffling his ears. "You're being dramatic." But he didn't move. He just stayed there, breathing heavy, his eyes locked on the darkness like it was staring back. By the 4th day, I started to hear things too. It started with soft noises outside, crunching gravel, the creak of the gate, a faint metallic clink like a lock being tested. Always around the same time. Just after midnight. Just long enough to convince me it could be in my head. One night, I grabbed a flashlight and went outside. Scout followed at my heel, pressed so close I nearly tripped on him. The air was sharp and still, the kind of silence that felt loaded. I swept the beam across the yard. Nothing. But the back gate, the one I always double-checked, was slightly ajar. Just an inch. Enough to make my stomach drop. I think someone's been sneaking around my house, I told the officer at the station the next day. I got a note and my dog's been acting off. He's terrified. The officer, a young guy with a blonde buzz cut and a half-sincere smile, scribbled something in a notebook and nodded. You said nothing's been stolen? No, but... And the note just said he sees you? That could be a prank. Kids. X maybe. I shook my head. No. I don't think this is a joke. He gave me the classic polite dismissal look. I'll file it. Just make sure you keep your doors locked. I left with a hollow feeling in my chest. Scout sat in the passenger seat, watching the police station like he expected something more. Someone to do something. That night, I let him out for his evening run in the backyard. 10 minutes tops. But when I called him back in, he didn't come. Scout. I stepped out into the yard, barefoot on cold concrete. Let's go. Silence. Then rustling. He came limping out from behind the garden shed, panting hard, his front legs streaked with mud and blood. A gash ran along his flank, shallow but ugly. I dropped to my knees beside him. What happened? My voice cracked. What happened? I checked the yard. Nothing out of place. No sign of a fight, no broken fence, no paw prints except his. I brought him inside, cleaned the wound, and called the vet. Thankfully, it wasn't deep. But the look in Scout's eyes that night stuck with me. Wide, frantic, like he'd seen something I couldn't. Like he was trying to tell me it's not just in your head anymore. That's when I started locking every door, every window, and I started sleeping with the lights on. The silence that woke me up wasn't the kind you notice, it was the kind you feel. Like something had shifted. Like the air was holding its breath. It was 2:41 a.m. Scout wasn't at the foot of the bed, like usual. The blankets were still indented where he'd been, but he was gone. I sat up, heart already beating fast. Then I heard it. A soft creak from downstairs, followed by the sound of paws, fast and scrambling across the floor. Then a thud. A bark. A deep, guttural bark I'd never heard from him before, full of warning, of rage. I threw the covers off and ran down the stairs, flipping lights on as I went. Scout was in the kitchen, fur bristling, barking at the back door like it had insulted him. His body was tense, chest heaving. I grabbed the nearest thing I could, an umbrella from the stand, and flung the door open. But the yard was empty. I stepped out slowly, checking every corner, every shadow. Gate. Shut. Fence. Intact. But the security light was on, and near the bushes, muddy footprints. Boot prints. I turned back to Scout, who hadn't stopped barking. His tail was straight out, his nose to the ground, pacing in erratic zigzags like he was tracking something. Something or someone had been inside the yard. The next morning I found more. It was little things, but once I noticed, they stacked up like dominoes. The coffee mug I'd left in the sink was sitting on the counter. A drawer in the hallway was open, barely, but definitely open. One of Scout's toys was missing, the blue rubber one he always kept by the fireplace. And the front door? Locked. Deadbolt still turned. But the chain lock, the one I only used when I was home, was unhooked. Someone had been in the house. The police came, but the tone was the same. Maybe you forgot to lock up. Maybe you left the drawer open. Maybe your dog moved the mug. Maybe. I showed them the footprints. They said, could be yours. I told them about the note. They said, doesn't prove intent. I showed them the missing toy. They didn't even write it down. We'll keep an eye on the area, one officer said, standing in my doorway like it wasn't full of someone else's footprints. But honestly, if nothing was stolen, it's hard to call it a break-in. They left. Scout stood at the window and watched them go, ears pinned back, chest rising and falling like he was waiting for someone to listen. That afternoon, I noticed he had a new behavior. He would stand in front of me, physically block me, whenever someone walked past the house. Tail low, teeth bared just barely, and always the same quiet growl. Twice, it happened with people I knew. A friend from work came by to drop off a book, and Scout wouldn't let her up the front steps. He planted himself between us, eyes locked on her, growling deep in his throat. I'd never seen him act like that towards someone he recognized. "What's his problem?" she asked, backing off. "I don't know," I said. But deep down I did. He didn't trust anyone. And neither did I anymore. I started walking Scout in the mornings again. It felt safer than the middle-of-the-night patrols we'd been doing. At least in daylight, people were around. Or so I thought. It was on a Tuesday, just after 7 a.m., when I first noticed him. Scout and I were halfway through our usual route, a winding trail through the neighborhood park, lined with fog-heavy trees and the occasional jogger. The man was sitting alone on a bench near the duck pond, his head tilted down like he was watching something on his phone. But he wasn't. He was watching me. Or maybe he was watching Scout. It was hard to tell at first. But I felt it, like a chill that starts at your neck and settles into your bones. Scout froze, mid-step, then let out a sound I'd never heard before. Not quite a bark. More like a warning rumble, deep in his chest, like he recognized something I didn't. I tugged on the leash. "Come on, buddy." Scout didn't move. The man looked up, met my eyes, and smiled. Not the kind of smile you give a stranger in passing. Not friendly. Not even curious. It was too long, too still. It didn't touch his eyes. And then, just as slowly, he stood up. I didn't wait. I yanked Scout back toward the sidewalk and didn't look back until we were half a block from the park. When I did, he was gone. I told myself I was overreacting. It was just a guy in a public park. That's what parks were for. But the next day, he was there again. Same bench. Same time. Same stillness. And the day after that. And the day after that. No matter when I walked Scout, somehow the man was there first. Sometimes standing. Sometimes sitting. Always alone. Always watching. Never doing anything, just present. Scout started reacting to him instantly, snarling, tail between his legs, body coiled like a spring. I'd never seen my dog afraid of people before. Not like this. I told Kara again. There's this guy. Keeps showing up when I walk Scout. Doesn't talk, doesn't smile, just watches. Call the cops again. And say what? That some guy looked at me in public. There was a pause. Then she said, maybe don't walk alone for a bit. That night, I came home late from work and found something new. Scout was already barking before I even unlocked the door. Inside, everything looked fine. Nothing broken, nothing missing, but something was off. The blue rubber toy, the one that went missing after the break-in, was back. Sitting in the center of the living room rug. Clean. Untouched. Like it had never left. My stomach flipped. I hadn't found it. No one I knew would have returned it. I hadn't mentioned it to anyone but the police. And even then, barely. I backed up, eyes scanning the room. I checked the locks. All secure. Windows shut. Nothing out of place. Except now there were 2 notes, tucked beneath Scout's dog bowl. Both written on the same kind of folded paper. Same strange, shaky handwriting. The first I already knew by heart. He sees you. The second was shorter. He's closer than you think. Scout didn't leave my side that night. He curled up on the floor by the couch, eyes on the front door, growling softly in his sleep. I sat awake, the 2 notes on the coffee table in front of me, and the blue toy beside them. The fear was no longer creeping in. It was already here. I brought the notes to the police again. This time, I got a different officer. Older. Worn in. The type who looked like he'd seen enough to know better, but also enough to stop caring. He examined the paper like it might grow legs and run away, then shrugged and handed them back. No fingerprints, he said. No direct threat. Doesn't cross any lines. 2 notes, I snapped. Someone came into my house. Twice. They're watching me. They gave my dog's toy back. Could be a prank, he said. A sick one, sure. Maybe someone you know trying to mess with you. I wanted to scream. Why won't anyone take this seriously? He folded his arms and said, gently, like I might break if he didn't. You live alone, right? And there it was. That quiet assumption. That this was stress. Loneliness. Imagination. Kara called that night. I told her everything again. Her voice was careful. Cautious. You've been through a lot lately, she said. You've barely been sleeping. You're already anxious. Scout probably picks up on that.
No.
It's the other way around. He knew before I did. She hesitated. I'm just saying it might help to talk to someone. You think I'm making this up? I didn't say that. You didn't have to. She fell silent, and something in me snapped. You're not here. You didn't see the toy. You didn't read the notes. You didn't see Scout lose his mind when that man looked at us in the park. There was a long pause then. I'm worried about you.
Click.
I hung up. That night, I turned off all the lights except one. The lamp by the couch. Scout lay next to me, tense, his eyes locked on the front door. I stared out the window for hours. Nothing. But I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was doing the same thing from somewhere else. Watching me. The next day, I took Scout to the vet to check the gash on his side. It had healed up, but I needed answers. Any kind. Dr. Harlow looked him over with calm hands and a tight smile. Physically, he's fine. But his cortisol levels are high. His stress is off the charts. He's scared, I said.
He's protecting you, she replied.
Dogs don't just react to threats, they anticipate them. And when they feel ignored, it makes them anxious. I blinked. So you think he's right? She hesitated, then said carefully, I think dogs don't lie. They don't make things up. If he's scared, maybe you should be too. But no one else agreed. Not my coworkers, who stopped asking why I flinched at every knock. Not my neighbor, who saw me putting up security cameras and laughed. Planning for the apocalypse? Not even myself, at times. Because there were moments, brief, terrifying moments, when I wondered if they were right. If I was unraveling. If the fear was coming from me, not outside. But then Scout would growl. Or freeze in place at the window. Or wake me up in the middle of the night, staring down the hallway like someone had just walked through it. And I'd remember, it's not just me. It's him, too. And he never stopped trying to warn me. It started with the power going out. I was brushing my teeth, Scout curled on the hallway rug behind me, when the lights flickered once, twice, then cut completely. Everything went black. The silence that followed was too quiet. The kind of silence where sound should be, but isn't. Scout shot up, tense, ears forward, muscles locked. A second later, he bolted, full speed, down the hallway toward the living room, barking like he was ready to kill. Scout! I yelled, spitting toothpaste into the sink, heart already in my throat. Then I heard it. The unmistakable sound of the back door creaking open. Not forced. Not smashed in. Just opened. By someone who had a key. I grabbed the flashlight from the nightstand drawer and ran. The beam shook in my hand as I turned the corner, and Scout was in the kitchen, teeth bared, barking like his lungs might give out. His body blocked the entryway. His fur was standing on end, tail straight, eyes locked on the doorway that led to the back porch. I followed his gaze. The door was open. Not wide, just a few inches. Enough for someone to slip inside. My stomach twisted as I stepped forward and pushed it shut, locking it. Deadbolt.
Chain.
Every lock I had. Then I heard movement upstairs. Not creaking pipes. Not settling floorboards. Footsteps. Scout whined, frustrated, alert, scared. I looked at him. He looked back, and there was something raw in his eyes. Desperate. I turned off the flashlight and crouched in the hallway. My phone was in my pocket, thank God. I called 911 with trembling fingers. 911, what's your emergency? Someone's in my house, I whispered. They broke in. Please send someone. I'm not alone. I gave them the address. They told me to stay quiet. Stay hidden. I moved with Scout into the coat closet under the stairs, crouching in the dark. Scout pressed his body against mine, still trembling. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. And upstairs, floorboards groaned. A door opened, then closed. Whoever it was wasn't in a rush. They knew I was here. They were taking their time. 15 minutes. That's how long it took the cops to arrive. 15 minutes of frozen silence, broken only by Scout's growls and the creaks above our heads. 15 minutes of knowing that someone was walking through my home, uninvited, unafraid. When the red and blue lights finally splashed through the windows and I heard shouting, "Police!" I nearly collapsed. The intruder was gone by then. No signs of forced entry. No clear exit point. But one of the officers called me over to the upstairs hallway. "You recognize this?" I stared at the object he was holding. It was one of my t-shirts, one I hadn't worn in months. Folded neatly. Left on my pillow. My blood ran cold. Then the officer handed me something else. A third note. Folded.
Damp.
Smelling faintly of my detergent. He was here. And he'll come back. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't sleep for many nights. But Scout stayed awake too. Every creak, every shadow, every wind-blown leaf. He was there. Guarding. Watching. Waiting. Not just a pet anymore. Not just a companion. A protector. A witness. The only one who believed me from the start. I didn't go back to work. Couldn't. Every sound was suspect. Every shadow meant something. The house, once familiar, now felt like a trap I had to outsmart. I moved through it like I was trespassing in my own life. Scout followed me constantly, never more than a few steps away, eyes always alert. I stopped sleeping. I stopped eating. I started preparing. I replaced every lock. Got cameras front, back, inside, even the hallway. I bought motion sensors and nailed shut the windows. I kept the flashlight on me at all times, even in the day. The police had no leads. No fingerprints. No suspects. No concern. "He's not coming back," they said. You scared him off. But I knew better. Scout knew better. That kind of evil doesn't get scared. It gets patient. I rewatched the footage from the night of the break-in over and over, frame by frame. But he never appeared. No silhouette, no flash of movement. Just Scout, howling, charging, fighting against something the cameras never caught. It didn't make sense. Until I realized. He knew where the cameras were. One night, a week later, I woke to find Scout staring out the window again. Unmoving. Tail stiff. I crawled over to him, heart in my throat. "What is it?" I whispered. Then I saw it. On the lawn, just past the reach of the porch light, was a shape. At first it looked like trash, like something blown there by wind. But as my eyes adjusted, I saw it was fabric. Clothes. A hoodie. Jeans. Laid out on the grass like a body. But empty. No person. Just a sick imitation of one. At the feet of the clothes, something small and white was pinned into the dirt. Another note. I waited until dawn before going outside. Scout wouldn't leave my side, snarling low with every step. The clothes were cold, damp with dew. The note was written on the back of a receipt, one of mine, from a grocery run I'd made a month ago. Almost. That was all it said. Just that one word. I tried telling Kara. Again. She didn't answer. Not the first call. Not the second. On the third, I left a message. They're inside my head. My house. My history. They know my dog's name. They know where I keep receipts. I think I've been watched for longer than I thought. This isn't random. It's personal. No response. But later that day, I got an email. No subject line. No message. Just an attachment. A photo.
Of me.
Walking Scout in the park. Taken from behind a tree. Time-stamped from 2 months ago. That night, I didn't hide. I waited. Scout and I sat in the dark, backs to the wall, flashlight in hand, knife on the table. I left the porch light off. I didn't want to scare him away. I wanted him to come. It was just past 2 a.m. when Scout lifted his head. No sound. No motion. Just instinct. I felt him tense before I heard the soft scrape outside. A footstep.
Slow.
Deliberate. Then another. The creak of the porch under weight. Someone was there, right outside the front door. I didn't move. Scout didn't bark. He didn't growl. He just stood, quiet and coiled, like a spring about to snap. I slipped the safety off the knife. And waited. A knock. Not hard. Not fast. Just intentional. Knock.
Pause.
Knock.
Knock.
The same rhythm as the notes. I stepped forward, heart like a drum in my ears. My hand reached for the curtain, but I stopped. I didn't want to give him a shadow. I didn't want him to know where I was. Instead, I whispered to Scout, "Stay." I grabbed the back door keys, cracked it open silently, and slipped out the rear with Scout at my heel. We circled around the house, feet on grass, breath held. And there he was, standing on the porch, back to us. Black hoodie,
Jeans.
that same unnatural stillness. Like he wanted to be seen now. I didn't speak, didn't move, but Scout did. He stepped forward, low to the ground, ears pinned back, and let out the deepest growl I've ever heard from him. The man turned.
It was the guy from the park.
The one who watched. The one who never spoke. Up close, his face was ordinary. Almost forgettable. Not some monster. Not some movie villain. Just a man. Which made it worse. Because monsters should look like monsters. He smiled. Again. That dead, unnatural stretch of his mouth. And said, "You finally came out." I froze. "How do you know where I live?" I asked. My voice sounded too calm. Like someone else was speaking for me. He tilted his head. "I've always known." Scout lunged. I held him back with everything I had, hands wrapped tight in the leash. "What do you want?" I asked. He looked down at Scout, then up at me. I wanted to see how long it would take before you believed him. "What?" He nodded toward Scout.
The dog.
He's the only one who figured it out. Right away. Most people ignore animals when they panic. But not you. Not all the way. That's why this was fun. Something inside me snapped. I stepped forward, brandishing the knife. "You need to leave.
Now.
Or I swear." He didn't flinch. Just stepped back, off the porch. Still smiling. "I already got what I came for," he said. "But don't worry. I'm done. For now." Then he turned and disappeared into the night. The police came within 5 minutes. This time I had the footage. Cameras caught him, clear as day. Walking, knocking, speaking. They ran his face through databases. Nothing. No name. No ID. No past. But at least now they believe me. Sort of. Scout hasn't relaxed. Not completely. Not even now. He still checks the windows every hour. Still sleeps by the door. Still listens to things I can't hear. But now I listen too. Because whatever game that man was playing, I wasn't the only target. Scout was the first line of defense. And I realized somewhere in all of this, the story was never really about me. It was about the dog who knew. And the people who didn't. It's been 3 months. The locks are still changed. The cameras are still rolling. The lights stay on at night, even when I try to tell myself it's over. I move Scout's bed closer to mine, but he rarely uses it. He still sleeps by the door. Same spot. Every night. I tried moving it once. He dragged it back with his teeth. Some things, I guess, he just won't compromise on. They never caught him. The man. No fingerprints. No address. No trace. Just a face burned into footage and memory, and a string of questions no one wants to answer. They investigated for a while. Then they labeled it unresolved but closed. Which is legal speak for, we don't want to deal with it anymore. But I do. I have to. Because this wasn't random. And I've started to see it. The pattern.
The game.
He'd been watching people long before me. Testing their instincts. Seeing how far he could go before they broke. Before they gave in to fear. Or ignored it. He chose me because I noticed something most people don't. I listened to a dog. Scout's calmer now. Not completely, but different. Like whatever it was, that thing that lingered in the corners of the room, is gone. Or at least farther away. But sometimes, in the early hours of the morning, he still wakes me up. Just sits there, staring down the hallway, unblinking. And I get that old chill, the one that starts in your spine and spreads to your teeth. Because he doesn't bark. He doesn't growl. He just knows. And if I've learned anything from all of this, It's that when a dog is scared of nothing you can see, that's when you should be afraid.
The end.
Or maybe not.